All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We all know the way we consume and chuck products today is just fundamentally broken. We're going to look at the massive challenges hitting our global ecosystems, sure, but more importantly, we're going to figure out how we actually fix it.
To really grasp the scale here, we gotta look at the numbers. Every single year, human activity generates a jaw-dropping 2.01 billion tons of municipal solid waste worldwide. That's billion with a B. As populations grow and economies boom, this literal mountain of waste is just devastating our ecosystems, and a huge chunk of it doesn't get any kind of safe environmental management.
And to put our throwaway culture into perspective, get this. We are currently dumping the equivalent of a full garbage truck of plastic into the ocean every single minute. Every minute. If we keep this up, by 2050, the plastic in our oceans is probably going to outweigh the fish, which is just wild to think about.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The global waste crisis. 2. Rethinking the linear economy. 3. Making producers pay. 4. Material and tech innovations. 5. The policy driver. And finally, 6. The human element.
Let's start with Section 1, the global waste crisis, overwhelming the planet.
Let's kick things off by looking at where all this waste is actually coming from across the value chain, because the data here might actually surprise you. Out of the 931 million tons of food wasted every year, which, by the way, is roughly the weight of 23 million fully loaded trucks, the vast majority, 61%, comes right from our own households. It's not just the restaurants or big grocery chains. The biggest leaks are happening right in our own kitchens.
Now contrast that household food waste with our plastic habits. An average single-use plastic bag, its working life is roughly 12 minutes. That is 12 minutes of convenience followed by up to 2 decades of it breaking down into dangerous microplastics. And these tiny particles are so pervasive now, they've literally been found in the air, in animals, and shockingly, circulating deep inside human lungs and blood.
Which brings us to Section 2, rethinking the linear economy, the paradigm shift.
The bottom line here is that our post-World War II model of unbridled mass consumption is completely unsustainable. We urgently need a paradigm shift. We've got to ditch the traditional take, make, waste linear economy. Digging up resources, making a thing, and tossing it into a landfill. It just doesn't work on a finite planet. Instead, we have to pivot to a circular economy. A system that designs out waste from the get-go and keeps materials in continuous circulation.
And this new paradigm completely flips the script on waste management. Notice how recycle is actually way down the list here? That's because the ultimate goal, the holy grail of circularity, is step 1, refrain or refuse. Completely avoiding the use of a resource in the first place is infinitely better than having to figure out how to recycle it later.
Moving on to Section 3, making producers pay, accountability in action.
Now, we can't just put the whole burden on consumers to refuse and recycle. That's not enough. We need systemic tools that actually force companies to clean up the mess their products create. Enter Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR. This essentially stretches a producer's financial and operational responsibility all the way to the end of their product's life. By slapping on eco-fees, EPR drives real investment into recycling facilities and forces companies to design products that are actually easy to take apart and reuse.
To see this in action, just look at France's furniture sector. They've got a fantastic EPR scheme. Used beds and couches don't just get dumped. The system systematically breaks them down. Wood gets ground into particle boards. Mattresses are dismantled for recycled steel springs and foam. And upholstery undergoes iron removal to become solid recovered fuel for cement plants. It is a brilliant closed loop of accountability.
All right, Section 4, material and tech innovations, the exciting fixes.
Policy is great, but the scientific community is also delivering some absolute game changers to replace fossil fuel plastics. For instance, researchers over at Yale have whipped up this remarkably strong bioplastic using wood powder, which is literally just waste from lumber mills. And the craziest part, this stuff completely biodegrades in just 3 months. Not centuries like petroleum plastics, but 3 months.
And businesses are proving that designing out waste is actually highly profitable. Take Dunnet Bay's distillery. They swapped the heavy glass bottles for their Rock Rose gin with returnable mail pouches. This slashed their packaging weight by an insane 98.3%. We're talking 750 grams down to just over 12 grams. Plus, they saved over 10 pounds per case on shipping and totally took control of their waste stream.
On the tech side of things, AI is completely revolutionizing how we sort trash. Over in Barcelona, systems like Zen Robotics are using deep learning cameras and robotic arms to rapidly segregate trash right on the conveyor belts. They can spot and sort 13 different materials with 90% accuracy. It's a massive leap forward from inefficient manual sorting.
Let's look at Section 5, the policy driver, forcing the change.
But look, all the AI robots and wood powder bioplastics in the world aren't going to scale up without some serious legislative muscle behind them. Lawmakers really have to force industries to change. The EU's Single-Use Plastics Directive is a textbook example. They banned single-use cutlery and straws back in 2021. By 2024, bottle caps legally have to stay attached so they don't get lost in nature. And by 2025, PET bottles must contain at least 25% recycled plastic. It's about aggressively banning the throwaway items that are choking our ecosystems.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 6, the human element, the ultimate solution.
We've looked at the material innovations, the robots, the government directives, but here is the ultimate takeaway of this whole explainer. Overcoming this global waste crisis requires way more than just technological fixes. A new bioplastic isn't going to save us on its own. Those are just tools. True circularity absolutely requires a massive, concerted shift in human behavior. We need a rapid, intertwined sequence of actions.
This sequence kicks off with targeted legislative action. Governments everywhere need to step up and fiercely regulate what materials even make it into our economy in the first place. Imposing strict bans on harmful items, mandating minimums for recycled content, and expanding those EPR eco-fees to basically every sector.
But, and this is crucial, those laws have to be instantly paired with sustainable consumer habits. You and I have to actively reject the convenience of throwaway culture. That means actually taking the time for systematic household waste sorting, especially since we know 61% of food waste happens right in our kitchens, and intentionally choosing reusable delivery models over the illusion of infinite consumption. And finally, wrapping this all together is strict organizational accountability. Corporations have to fundamentally redesign their operations right from the conceptual stage. They need to decarbonize their supply chains and take full, absolute ownership of their product's end of life, instead of just passing the buck to municipal landfills. Legislation, consumer habits, and corporate accountability, they are all completely intertwined. So knowing that all the cutting-edge tech in the world can't save us without a real change in your behavior, and remembering that refuse is the absolute top of the circular economy hierarchy, I'll leave you with this. What will you refuse to buy tomorrow?